Welcome to this edition of Inside the Academy Studio.
Today's conversation will be about the best of the rest. These are the films that receive some Academy recognition, but not for Best Picture. I bring in my co-host now, and we will be discussing films that both of us, or one of us, saw that received some sort of Academy recognition. And we'll start with Anna Karenina, which is honored 4 times in cinematography, costume design, original score, and production design. It's based off the obviously famous Leo Tolstoy novel and directed by Joe Wright, starring Keira Knightley, who we've seen together in Atonement.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very self-contained film. The directing style, they choose to basically film it on almost like a play set kind of thing.
And you can obviously see that. I mean, you see the sets changing as the scenes actually change, right?
Right, yeah. So other than some of the exterior shots, a lot of it's just like people moving around in each scene and doing what they need to do. So let's talk about the production design. Beautiful costumes, that's balanced by the beautiful lighting, the cinematography. What were your thoughts of those two elements?
Well, I think it's definitely the highlight of the movie. I think it definitely wasn't the strongest movie of the year, but it was definitely a very beautiful movie to look at. So it's very fair where it received recognition.
Right, just the one of the scenes with Anna Karenina and the new paramour of hers, and then everything else goes to black and it's like a spotlight shone, and they seem like one of those music boxes, frozen tableau. The next film we'll talk about the best of the rest is The Avengers.
Well, The Avengers is the highest grossing movie of the year. I'm sure everybody listening to this has seen this, except for my co-host, and that's something I joke about. It's a crowd-pleasing movie. It's start to finish. You feel like you really care about these characters, even if you haven't seen a movie before with them. I mean, just like a lot of people aren't really familiar with this kind of Incredible Hulk, right? But people are really into the Incredible Hulk by the end of this movie. They were clapping, they were cheering. It's a fun movie to experience. It's definitely an experience.
The big addition, or the director being Josh Whedon, he has his fan base and he has his unique style. What do you think Whedon adds to the Avengers?
I think Whedon adds a balance. I think the biggest concern going into a movie like this, for there's so many characters and characters that you're adding into the movie, is that each character is just going to get drowned out from each other, right? But like instead, you see each character highlighted in their own way as part of a team, which is what the Avengers' goal was.
Okay, and it's being recognized for visual effects. What were your thoughts of the visual effects?
Most definitely excellent. I mean, you felt like you were in downtown Manhattan being attacked by alien warlords from a land far away.
Okay. The next movie we'll talk about is Flight, directed by Bob Zemeckis. His first live-action film in over a decade.
2000. Well, Lies Beneath, by the way.
Right. And it's being recognized...
Actually, Castaway, my mistake.
Same year. Right? Okay. Recognized in 2 categories, for Best Actor, for Denzel Washington, and Original Screenplay. So let's talk about Denzel. It's one of the most difficult roles of his career. An alcoholic who basically does this harrowing flight, saves all these people, but still is fighting inner demons.
Yeah.
It's really just a nice character study of Denzel's character.
I think this movie is kind of like it's a bait and switch movie, and it's not a bad movie because of that, but it's like you go into the movie expecting it to be a hero, a conflicted hero. That's it, right? But what you get is a movie that deals with addiction and how it affects people around them. Really, that's really what you get at the end of the movie. I mean, it's less about the actual flight, but more about how Denzel's character played by Denzel, how his addictions affect those around him.
Right. Whitaker's character, you have the co-lead who's coming off a heroin overdose.
Yeah.
John Goodman's drug dealer, Don Cheadle, and Bruce Greenwood trying to control him in advance of the big hearing he has. It's a unique concept, and being nominated for original screenplay it really leaves you guessing almost to the end if Denzel is going to come clean, if we're going to find out more facts about this flight. Can you talk about its success, the Gatton's screenplay, and how it helps the film?
I think the biggest strength I saw of the screenplay is that it felt like it was realistic. Because you saw everything from the casting to the setting and the characterizations. It felt like it was set in like the American South.
Right.
I mean, I'm not too familiar with the region, of course, but it felt like you felt like there was a struggle between faith and, of course, addiction, and of course, like a whole bunch of themes were all brought up within this movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're moving on from a film that recognizes Best Actor to one that recognizes Best Actress, and that's The Impossible, based on one family's struggle to survive after the 2004 tsunami that struck Southeast Asia, and being recognized for Best Actress is Naomi Watts. It's a very physical performance for Naomi.
Mm-hmm.
You know, from escaping the tsunami tidal waves to, you know, having that hole in her leg, to basically being dragged everywhere, to lying in a bed, you know, fighting so much pain. It's something, you know, we may have not seen from Naomi Watts, who's, you know, a beautiful actress who does more softer roles, yet very good in her roles. 21 Grams, Mulholland Drive. Talk about Naomi in this particular film.
Well, I think I find it interesting that she's nominated for lead role. I mean, I thought her role supports the rest of the cast, so I thought of it as a supporting role. I mean, it's a good role, but it was like a role that supported all the other characters' actions of what they did, especially her son, who really takes over like the lead for a lot of the movie.
Yeah, and I think that's a positive of the film. The kids in this film are pretty amazing.
Yeah,
they're believable. You know, they know that they've gone through such horrific circumstances. Even the two young kids, when they're on their own, they can hold the screen that you can say that, you know, you're hoping, because it's near the end. It's a lot of missed connections. People are in the same vicinity, but they're just missing each other. And that could be, you know, they're just yanking our chain, but you really want them to meet. So you're okay with that. And you're okay with that direction the film takes.
I know a lot of people may say this is a very sappy story. I'm sure we've seen this a lot, but at the end of the day, details may have been changed in the movie, but this was a family that was separated during the tsunami, and it was brought together, and that's based in reality, and you can't dispute that.
The next film we will discuss is Moonrise Kingdom. I had the chance to view that, and it's being honored for original screenplay, Wes Anderson and Roman Coppola's. Wes Anderson directs this film. It's a really quaint and really self-sufficient world that they've created. It's a love story of two kids, in the mid-60s, one escaping, you know, a family she doesn't fit into, one who's an orphan who's leaving the khaki troops, and they basically find friendship, they find love, and a lot of supporting characters, you know, are really good. Bruce Willis, Bill Murray, Frances McDormand. Edward Norton's is hilarious, playing this grown-up scout leader who just lives as a scout leader. And it's just a really realized world in a movie that's so short. In 90 minutes, it kind of gives you a full resolution. Yeah,
it definitely sounds like it's an all-star Wes Anderson cast.
It is, yeah. If you're a Wes Anderson fan, you're going to enjoy this film, I think.
Yeah.
Moving on, we'll be looking at Prometheus, directed by Ridley Scott. The so-called prequel to Alien. It looks at more of the origins of humanity on Earth, and then the first manned mission to find out who these were, and the first real interaction humans have with the alien subspecies. Many have commented that they thought the screenplay was either confusing or, you know, frustrating.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you talk about that?
I mean, you can definitely see it with the response. It was it was the polarizing movie of the summer. It was a movie that people appreciated its sense of ambiguity and unclear answers, but other people criticized it, calling it lazy, calling it forced to a point.
Yeah, it's one that people are going to like it, people are not going to like it.
Yeah.
But they're going to have opinion otherwise.
Yes.
And I think we should really quickly recognize Michael Fassbender, who's just an actor who's just piling screen credit after screen credit and doing really, really good work. His David, the I don't know the proper term, automation.
That's true. I don't
remember the exact thing.
A cyborg, we'll say.
Yeah, cyborg.
A robot, probably, because cyborg, I think you have to be some organic.
Really good, really good at the beginning, really good supporting Noomi Rapace near the end.
Yeah.
And it's being recognized for visual effects, which are pretty solid.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Visual effects are definitely very good. I think even the most polarized critics will admit that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Moving on, we're looking at a smaller film, which is recognized in supporting actors category, which is The Sessions. And Helen Hunt is being recognized. It's a film about a quadriplegic man who lives in a basically air-lung supported...
Iron lung.
Yeah. The iron lung. And seeks intimacy and hires a sex surrogate in Helen Hunt. Helen Hunt has been recognized and she does really good work, but I want to highlight John Hawkes, who in some ways was snubbed this year. You know, it's a really captivating performance for somebody who doesn't move on screen.
Mm-hmm. I personally, the first thing after watching this movie, I thought, well, that movie was a little gross, I'll admit that, because it is pretty explicit overall, both how the dialogue and, of course, the on-screen thing. But you still felt like a connection with John Hawkes. That's the biggest challenge when you're working with such a limited range of motion, literally.
Right.
If you can overcome that, that's a true feat for an actor.
Yeah, and then Helen Hunt, when she enters, it's someone who looks very steely-eyed and professional, but then eventually is able to break down and show more of, her, quest and connection that she makes with Hawks' character. We're almost nearing the end of this edition of Inside the Academy Studio, and we will have a look into one of the most recognized outside of Best Picture, that both of us had the opportunity to see, and that's Skyfall. The 23rd edition of the James Bond series, this time directed by Academy Award winner Sam Mendes. And this was a very much self-contained Bond, but we had a former MI6 member who basically cripples the MI6. We have the death of Q, played by Judi Dench. And
spoiler alert.
Yes, and the arrival of Moneypenny. So I talked about how it was much more of a self-contained Bond, taking a lot of it taking place in the UK. Mm-hmm. Is that effective, or did you miss a lot of the Bond traveling around the world?
I think I didn't really miss it as much because I think, especially coming from a North American perspective, UK is so foreign to us, so it's still seeing a lot of different things that we don't necessarily see in movies. Like seeing the Skyfall Ranch, right? I think that's what it is in Scotland.
Yeah,
that's shooting it there. It looks beautiful. It's a great way to
just the remote house, surrounded by the Highlands of Scotland. And I think the point too maybe helped the story. Biggest grossing film of all time in the UK, so they definitely embraced it. Mm-hmm. Let's quickly talk about Bond girls were understated in this film.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I guess it was Moneypenny, but other than that,
which is a different kind of Bond girl.
Yeah.
But Javier Bardem's villainous performance as a former MI agent is memorable.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
The look. Even some of the techniques, it's a memorable Bond villain.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it's also it tries to strike the balance the entire movie is trying to balance, right? The contemporary topical issues of the role of intelligence agencies today, like we see with Julian Assange, which I think the villain is based on, combined with the classical, more campy things we've seen in Bond movies of the past. I mean, we do see the car with the. We do see the old-fashioned car. We do see the return of Q. We see all bunch of.
It's a good cross mixing.
Yeah.
Skyfall is being recognized in cinematography, original score, sound editing, sound mixing, and Adele's original song Skyfall. What do you think about Skyfall quickly?
Which is it's a good song if you're an Adele fan. If you're not an Adele fan, you probably are avoiding it. So that's all I can say about it.
I almost forgot, but we did actually have one more after Skyfall, which is The Master, which is recognized 3 times, all in acting categories, and it is loosely based on the rise of Scientology and the Church of Scientology, and it's directed by P.T. Anderson, his first film that he's directed since 2007's There Will Be Blood. Give us some quick thoughts of The Master.
Well, The Master is definitely similar to There Will Be Blood. It's not a movie that everybody will immediately like. I mean, I probably didn't like it as much as There Will Be Blood, probably because There Will Be Blood had a better performance from lead actors such as Daniel Day-Lewis.
Right.
So I thought it helped flesh out those longer scenes out better.
I think it was one of the most risky stories, just if the aura of Scientology around Hollywood. It was a movie about obsessions. Joaquin Phoenix is sexual obsessions, and Philip Seymour Hoffman and Amy Adams' obsessions to get their opinions out there. And I think all three leads in this movie are really, really well done, and they deserve to be honored. One of the last things we like to do is word association. So when you think best of the rest, what do you think of?
I think of old, because a lot of the movies seem to be looking back to the past.
Old, and I think of Hawks for John Hawks, someone I think who did a really good job. So when we think best of the rest, we think old and Hawks. That is this edition of Inside the Academy Studio.
Thank you.